The wrestling world just witnessed something nobody saw coming, and honestly it's left fans questioning everything they thought they knew about storytelling in professional wrestling. John Cena's retirement tour was supposed to be this grand celebration of one of the greatest careers in sports entertainment history, but instead we got a finish that has people scratching their heads wondering what went wrong. Meanwhile, the Bloodline storyline that once captivated millions has dragged on so long that even the most dedicated fans are begging for it to end, and if that wasn't enough drama, the internet is buzzing about a situation involving Dani and Mandy that's getting messy by the day. If you want to stay updated on all the chaos unfolding in wrestling right now, hit that subscribe button because things are getting wild. Let's start with what should have been a triumphant moment but turned into one of the most confusing endings in recent memory. John Cena announced his retirement tour and fans everywhere got emotional thinking about all the memories this man has given us over 2 decades. 15-time world champion, countless classic matches, the face of WWE for years, and the guy who granted more wishes than anyone in Make-A-Wish history. When he stepped into the ring for what was being promoted as one of his final matches, the arena was electric with anticipation. People wanted to see him go out like the legend he is, with a performance that would remind everyone why he became such an icon in the first place. But then the match happened and something felt off from the very beginning. The pacing seemed weird, the chemistry wasn't there, and you could almost feel the confusion from the crowd as things progressed. Wrestling fans are pretty forgiving when it comes to storylines because we understand that sometimes things don't go according to plan, but this felt different. This felt like a miscommunication or a last-minute change that nobody was prepared for. The finish came so abruptly that half the audience wasn't even sure the match was over. There was no big moment, no emotional send-off, just a sudden ending that left everyone wondering if they missed something. Social media exploded immediately after, with fans trying to figure out what they just watched. Some people thought maybe it was intentional and part of some bigger storyline, but most agreed it just looked like something went wrong. The problem is when you're dealing with someone of John Cena's caliber and you're promoting his retirement tour, every match matters. Every moment is supposed to be special because we're watching the final chapter of an incredible story. To have it fall flat like this doesn't just disappoint fans, it takes away from the legacy that's been built over all these years. What makes it even more frustrating is that WWE has shown they know how to do retirement storylines right. They've given legendary send-offs before with emotional moments that had fans in tears, celebrating careers that deserve to be celebrated. So when something like this happens with John Cena of all people, it raises serious questions about what's going on behind the scenes. Was there an injury nobody knew about? Did plans change at the last second? Was there a disagreement about how things should go? Fans deserve better than being left in the dark, especially when it involves someone who's given so much to the business. Now let's talk about the Bloodline, because if there's one storyline that desperately needs to be put out of its misery, it's this one. Don't get it wrong, when this whole thing started it was absolute gold. Roman Reigns as the tribal chief, flanked by the Usos, creating this dominant faction that felt unstoppable. The storytelling was tight, the matches were great, and every week you tuned in because you genuinely wanted to see what happened next. It felt fresh, it felt important, and for a while it was the best thing happening in wrestling. But then something shifted and what was once compelling television turned into a loop that just keeps repeating itself. How many times can we watch the same power struggle play out? How many betrayals and reunions and family drama storylines can one faction possibly have? The answer apparently is way too many, because here we are years later still watching variations of the same story. Roman is still on top, people are still acknowledging him, and the family dynamics are still the focus of everything they do. The problem with dragging a storyline out this long is that eventually even the most invested fans start to lose interest. What once felt special becomes routine, and those big moments that used to get huge reactions start feeling predictable. Wrestling thrives on unpredictability, on not knowing what's coming next and keeping people on the edge of their seats. When you can basically write the script for the next 6 months yourself because it's all following the same pattern, that's when you know it's time to move on. Fans have been vocal about their frustration, and it's not because they hate the Bloodline or the people involved. It's because they remember how good it was and they're tired of watching something great be stretched so thin that it loses all its impact. There comes a point where you have to know when to end things on a high note rather than dragging them out until nobody cares anymore. The longer this goes, the more it feels like we're watching a story that should have had its conclusion a long time ago but keeps getting extended because the company doesn't know what else to do. The sad reality is that when this does finally end, and it has to end eventually, the big payoff might not even matter anymore. Fans might be so exhausted from the journey that the destination doesn't give them the satisfaction they would have felt if things had wrapped up when they were supposed to. That's not fair to the performers who've worked hard to make this storyline mean something, and it's definitely not fair to the audience who's been along for the ride all this time. Then there's the whole situation brewing between Dani and Mandy, and this one is getting messy in ways that go beyond the wrestling ring. Both women have carved out successful careers for themselves in different ways, and now they're caught in a very public dispute that has fans taking sides and social media going absolutely crazy with opinions. The details are complicated, but at the center of it all is a business that's become increasingly common among wrestlers looking to capitalize on their fame outside of traditional wrestling. Mandy made headlines when she transitioned away from WWE to focus on creating content that she controls. She found massive success building her own brand and making money on her own terms without having to answer to anyone else. It was a bold move that showed how wrestlers today have options beyond the traditional path, and a lot of people respected her for taking control of her career. She proved you don't need to be on television every week to be successful, and that connecting directly with your audience can be incredibly lucrative. Dani Palmer has been making her own waves in the industry, and now there's apparently some conflict between the two regarding their respective ventures. The exact nature of the disagreement isn't entirely clear, but what is clear is that both women are not backing down. Fans are watching this unfold in real time, with accusations being thrown around and supporters of each person defending them online. It's become this whole thing that's taking on a life of its own beyond whatever the original issue might have been. What's interesting about this situation is how it reflects the changing landscape of wrestling and entertainment in general. Performers today have so many more options for making money and building their brands outside of traditional channels. That independence is great, but it also creates new kinds of conflicts and competition that didn't exist before. When everyone is essentially running their own business and trying to stand out in a crowded marketplace, tensions are bound to arise, especially when success in this space can be extremely lucrative. The wrestling community is divided on who's right and who's wrong in this situation, if anyone is definitively right or wrong at all. Some people think one person has legitimate grievances while others believe the whole thing is being blown out of proportion. The truth probably lies somewhere in the middle, like it usually does, but that's not stopping people from forming strong opinions and making their voices heard. It's become one of those situations where everyone has something to say, whether they're directly involved or not. What's unfortunate is that both women have worked incredibly hard to get where they are, and now instead of their accomplishments being the focus, the drama is overshadowing everything else. That's the nature of conflict, though, especially when it plays out publicly. People love controversy, they love taking sides, and they love watching drama unfold. It gets attention and it gets people talking, but it also means that the actual work and achievements can get lost in all the noise. Looking at all three of these situations together, what we're seeing is a wrestling landscape that's in transition and dealing with growing pains. The John Cena situation shows how even the biggest stars and most carefully planned moments can fall flat when something goes wrong. The Bloodline dragging on forever demonstrates the danger of not knowing when to end a story even when it's been successful. And the conflict between Dani Palmer and Mandy Rose highlights the new challenges and competitions that come with performers having more independence and control over their careers. Wrestling has always been a business full of drama, both in front of the camera and behind the scenes. That's part of what makes it so fascinating to follow, because the lines between reality and storyline get blurred and you're never quite sure what's real and what's for show. These three situations, though, all feel very real and very consequential in their own ways. They're not just storylines designed to get reactions, they're actual issues that are affecting real people and impacting how fans view the industry. The question now is, what happens next with all of this? Will John Cena get the proper send-off he deserves, or will his retirement tour continue to stumble through awkward moments? Will WWE finally pull the trigger and end the Bloodline storyline, or are we doomed to watch this play out for another year or longer? And will Dani Palmer and Mandy Rose find a resolution to their conflict, or is this just getting started? Nobody knows for sure, but fans are watching closely because all of this matters to them in different ways. What's clear is that wrestling in this era is complicated and messy and full of uncertainty. The old rules don't always apply anymore. Performers have more power and more options than ever before, and the audience has higher expectations because they've seen what great storytelling looks like. When things work, it's magical, but when they don't work, it's really obvious, and people aren't shy about expressing their disappointment. That's the double-edged sword of having such a passionate fan base who care deeply about what they're watching. If you've made it this far in understanding all the chaos happening right now, then you're clearly invested in where wrestling is headed. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and stay tuned, because with everything going on, there's no way this is the end of any of these stories. Things are just getting started, and whether it all gets resolved satisfactorily or turns into an even bigger mess, it's going to be fascinating to watch. The wrestling world never stops moving, and right now it's moving faster and more unpredictably than it has in years.